On this episode of A Soul's Quest podcast, Omar and I are discussing some ways to accept what has happened, learn from mistakes, and leave your past behind. Stay tuned. So,
yay!
What's happened?
What's happened?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
You know where I
we're
got
talking about
that
today.
title from?
Where?
Tenet, the movie.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
There was a part towards the end of the movie in which they're conversating, and it's like, what's happened. So I'm like, oh, I thought that was pretty interesting.
Catchy.
Yeah, catchy.
But relevant.
And I thought it was a very good point, because you know, a lot of the times we want to be able to control our past or change it, but it's happened.
Yeah. So I when we talked about this episode, I was thinking that this is really relevant, and especially now that I'm looking at you, because there are a lot of times that you and I have had discussions, and a lot of the discussions have to do with what's in the past.
Yes.
And I think that's because for the majority of people, we experience traumas and experiences that are not pleasant. And those experiences, even if we think we've resolved those experiences or those feelings or the emotions that are wrapped around those experiences or the traumas, I think there are always triggers out there that sort of bring these traumas and experiences back to the surface.
It's interesting. I mean, like I go back and forth between the modern with the modern mental health movement. You know, I'm trying to make sense of it, right? Because there's things like triggers and things like self-care. To me, they're kind of dubious.
Why? They exist. They happen, don't they?
They do, right? But also, again, one of the things is that life is an experience, right? And there'll be situations that we experience that are not so pleasant. You know, we both share our stories, and we both share our things, right? But I've come to a stage in which, as painful as those experiences were, they're very integral, and a very important part of the person that I am. Like, without those experiences, I wouldn't be who I am. So there's a certain level of gratitude, you know, for me, for those things, those unpleasant things that happened.
I'd be curious to see how other people would respond to that, because why? Can you explain briefly how you could be grateful for being abused?
Yeah.
Or how you could be grateful for domestic violence in a relationship, or or being abandoned.
Yes.
I'm curious.
Yeah.
How do you find gratitude?
Let me tell you, for instance, I felt abandoned. You know, number one, my father growing up was never really in the picture, you know. And as a kid, to be honest with you, it was the part of my regular life. And I remember in my early 20s, when I had my first, spot with my subconscious, this coming up, and I went and confronted the situation.
Right.
And after I confronted it, I kind of like realized, I'm not really missing out on anything. That abandonment, and then knowing that there were things that I could have gained from it, I think allowed me to become more understanding and sympathetic to young people, to our kids, to try to be there and be more of a guide, not to be the replacement of a father, but to be able to guide a little bit better, because I understand what it is to be the other. So I think that was a thing, when my mother left and having to be alone and going to bed crying at night and having to feel that emptiness of being completely like nobody cares for me and all that stuff. I never thought about killing myself. I thought about running away. But then that showed me that I could rely on my inner world to find some solace, to know that there was no, that despair at the end of it was bearable.
Yeah.
So
temporary.
That it kind of like, oh, okay, I went through that and it was painful, but I was able to, now as an adult, I could spend time by myself and not get like, oh my God, I was able to go away on my own and not feel anything. So there are things, there are little gems that you gain if you look at it with different points of view. And that's what I'm saying, that sometimes even in the darkest darkness of darkness, there's things that make you uniquely you, and which comes from those traumatic experiences as well.
Right. So then this is the other point that just to get into the next segment here is why is it that there isn't anything wrong then with referring to our past, but there is something with dwelling in the past.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
So why do we do that? Why do we think so much about that? Why do we dwell on the past?
Okay. I always think about, I love animals. I like nature. Like nature teaches us all these stuff. Like if you really open your eyes to nature, like you really start seeing all these things, right? So animals learn in a very curious way, right? If an animal goes, and I was watching this documentary on a honey badger going after a snake. You remember that, right?
I remember, yeah.
So this honey badger had experience with the snake already, and he knew not to bite the snake on a certain place because before, when they did, it wasn't pleasant.
Yeah, he had a moment where he actually died.
He passed out
or whatever. Yeah.
But he knew from before
it wasn't good.
That he knew from before. Okay, well, I'm gonna pass out, but I'm gonna get up again. So let me kill it. I know I'm gonna pass out. But then when I come back and get up again, I'll do that.
It'll be dead, yeah.
I think about all our ancestors, right? Like I think about, for instance, in Jamaica, they eat that food, aki. They do aki and codfish, right? That fruit is poisonous if it's not treated in a certain type of way, right? Puff adders are edible, but if you do it in a certain way, they're poisonous and could kill a human. How did we get there? How did we figure that out? There was some person that tried it, killed themselves, right, and did it. It's the same thing that happens to us. We go through all these traumatic experiences, and we've learned from those experiences as how to avoid certain situations.
Okay. For a second there, you lost me, but now I got it.
Well, you did, right? No. I
was like, what?
Why
are you talking about?
Because we learn by experience.
By experience, right?
We learn by experience.
And we...
As traumatic, because I'm not trying to minimize the experiences, but an experience, so you got to look at it. And I want people to start really looking at deduction and logically and thinking of experiences and saying, okay, I learned from this experience and this is what I've learned from it.
Right. You can use those things as gems, as you like to refer to it, as gems to help us through current situations.
And then to be able to avoid danger.
Doing that, right. Gotcha.
Right? Because that's the whole idea of experience in life. It's like when you know that there's fire there, you're not going to touch it because you know that you're going to get burned. Right? And there are situations in which you're not aware of and things happen. No, but you always blame yourself for it, right? But it's not you. When traumatic situations happen to an individual kid, this is something that I struggle with personally, just full disclosure. I always thought that I was never good enough for things. Always. I was never good enough. You know, nothing that I did was never good enough growing up, right? Mm-hmm. If I got all straight A's, oh, you should have been number one, right? I didn't clean this good enough. I didn't do this good enough. Oh, you're this. You know, like I always felt like that. And all my life, throughout all of my life, I always felt that I wasn't good enough. Where did that come from? Well, my mom was tough on me, right? Grew up without a dad. Nobody really paid attention to me. And I remember this conversation that I had with Ken, my scoutmaster, mentor, everything. He's like a father figure. And he told me, he's like, I saw things like I know Danny was capable of doing, but I never saw anything coming from you. But all you needed was an opportunity. And that day, I just cried because I never had anybody tell me anything like that before at all, you know. And we looked up to Ken with reverence and fear all at the same time. Yeah. But women died from him. That was like the biggest thing in my life, right? But what that showed me at that moment is that it wasn't that I wasn't good enough, you know. And again, this is important too that I'm saying this because it replayed recently in my life, and I'm going to touch it both together. But it wasn't that I wasn't good enough. It was that I was never given an opportunity onto that moment to showcase what I was capable of doing. Your
abilities, right?
Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. So all my life, I kind of like, after that point, I started doing things based on that. But I still have that. I'm not good enough because I'm going to a different scenario, a different thing. I don't have Ken anymore. I don't have Betty anymore. I don't have my friend Danny and George anymore, you know? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to different scenarios. So I felt like I constantly had to prove myself, right? More recently, I dealt with that same thing. And for a little bit, for a strong period of time, you know, I felt that I wasn't good enough. Mm-hmm. But after talking to friends and talking to people that I really care about and people that care about me, and then understanding other people's motivations, then you start realizing, no, I did what I needed to do. I did the best that I could. Mm-hmm. So for me, feeling that I wasn't good enough was a reflection that those people were not willing to accept me for the person that I was.
You are, right.
Mm-hmm. You know, never did anything unethical. Always a team player. Did all those things that you're supposed to do because you want to do, right? Mm-hmm. But I was still not good enough in their eyes.
Right, the outcast.
I was always the other. Mm-hmm. I was the other.
Yeah.
But that doesn't, is that a reflection on me or a reflection on who they are as individuals? Mm-hmm. It's a two-way street.
Right.
You know, it's the conflict, right? So the idea really is because we learn from mistakes. We learn, and then it's like, you know, there's scientific research, and you guys look it up because I'm not looking that shit up. It's like you can look it up that it's like things get engraved in your mind from things that happen. But logically, you have to understand and accept that that's not always the reality and the truth. You know, it's like, but you have to learn from experiences.
Right. It's just like saying, like, you know, I shared my personal story of being abused.
Yes.
When we started A Soul's Quest, and I, you know, that affected me in ways that I didn't know it was affecting me, and I was denying that, as a part of my life. I was denying it because I just didn't want to believe that this is affecting me. I'm not that person, right? And I realized that, you know, being with you and stuff and whatnot, and started understanding, like, okay, I think this might be affecting me a little bit more than I thought. Mm-hmm. And really had to face and confront those issues, right? Yes. And the implications that it was having on my life. Yeah. And what it was doing for my thought process and thinking about it, ruminating and things like that. And it really, really showed me that I'm a strong person, and that I now have something that I can relate to other people with. Yes. That have gone through the same thing, who may not be going through it, who may have gone through it worse. Yeah. And who are not dealing with it productively. Yeah. And now what we do here is we share stories and we share the uniqueness and the commonalities. That's a commonality that I have with another individual that I can share with them, and I can say, listen, this is what happened to me. This is how I experienced and processed it. And this is how I'm getting through it and how I deal with it on a daily basis or whenever it comes up. And it's become less frequent how often I think about it now. And it doesn't make me feel the way that it used to. I used to feel like I'm the only one that's happened to. It's a naughty thing. I can't talk about it because people, it's disgusting. People are going to think I'm disgusting. What did I do to provoke this to happen? You know, the what do you call that? There's a word for it, but now I just completely lost it. But anyway,
victim blame.
The victim blaming, the blame culture. You know, and all of those things were really like wrapped up in, and even up until not, you know, a couple years ago when I was going through a situation at a place that I was working at and had to go through this whole process. And I had somebody tell me, well, have you considered the way that you dress? And I was stupid. Like, what, bitch? You know, I was upset. Yeah, I'm curvy. I was wearing a business outfit. I mean, you know, and it's like, even things like that, but I was able to defend myself and speak up on that, you know? And I think that experience, though, while I don't dwell on it, I do reflect on it sometimes. And I think to myself, I look at it differently now than I did. I don't look at myself as, ew, what did I do wrong? What was I doing? Was I stupid? Was I naive? What happened, you know? But I look at it now in terms of, first of all, I was a young girl, a little girl, you know, and I did with what I had at the moment, which was 5 or 6 years of life. And that doesn't define me.
You know what's interesting, right? And now that because we're talking about this, and I look at all this stuff, and I think we outline our episodes. We don't per se verbatim.
We want to be organic.
Yeah, we don't. We have bullet points that we want to touch on, but we don't really talk about specifics, right? But one of the things that just popped into my head today is like in my first meltdown that I ever had, you know, back in my 20s. Again, I go back to the States because it's like, it actually, I'm gonna be 44 years old this year.
Oof!
And
really?
It was in fact when this stuff.
So much older than me.
Yes, I am, and. The first time that about 22, 20 years ago, this is when the stuff started to happen. And consequently, the stuff that I've gone through within the last year started happening around the same time. So this is almost like a new cycle beginning for me, right? And I just kind of like doing it. So the one thing that really made me to logically understand how to overcome these things again, because the conflicts and the traumas that we go through and that we have engraved in our mind, those scars that we have, are typically conflicts that we have with other individuals.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
With other individuals.
A lot of the time.
So the book that helped me understand that was I'm Okay, You're Okay.
It's right behind you. I'm okay, you're okay.
With Thomas Harris, right?
Right.
And in this book, he kind of he goes into the adult, the parent, and the child, right? And he talked about, in particular, your parents and the culture that they grew up in, and the environment that they grew up in, and the idea that you have to somewhat put yourself in those situations, and that to achieve forgiveness is to be able to understand the culture or the environment or the circumstances in which they were in. Right. For you to put yourself in their shoes and think about it, right? And the reason why I bring that up, because ironically, this is how everything kind of like comes together. I remember my real father, just reaching out to me, and he was talking to me, and he didn't say, I'm sorry, because that's not the way that the culture communicates. But he says to me, well, you know, I was a young kid, you know, I didn't know what I was doing, you know, that was just, you know, it's just that everybody did it, so that's what I did, you know, that's just, everybody just did it. But I knew that already. I understood. I was logical enough to be able to step back and look at the cultural context of it all and look exactly what happens. And even though, I am a bastard, even though I'm all that, I understood it. I get it. Being the son of a bigot, it's bigot, right? That was married twice, didn't know. So I was that other kid, with our family already established. But once I understood that, even before he said that to me, which said it way later in life, I have already forgiven him. I'm like, you know what? It is what it is. I don't know if I could have a relationship because I don't think we have really much anything in common, although I've tried.
Yeah.
But we really don't have much in common. I'm cordial. Hey, how you doing? Everything's cool. Aesthetic. Excellent. Let's go. But that taught me something, that book and that idea of being able to understand your oppressors or understand those people that cause those scars.
Are you trying to allude to the idea of empathy?
Correct. Yeah. Because it's easier to hate.
Oh my God.
It is much easier to hate.
Yeah, but it's so much. You know what? I would disagree with that.
It is much easier to hate. No,
I think they're equivalent. I think personally, I don't agree with you on that. I think that it takes a lot of energy to hate somebody.
Yeah.
Because what you do is you ruminate on
constantly.
The thoughts and how this person, the transgressions and what they did and how dare them do that to me? They could die. They could go to hell. It takes so much energy. It raises your blood pressure. It just it brings you to this really dark place.
Yeah.
You're gossiping, talking about it all the time. Whereas empathy, I think you privately go through that process.
Yeah. And it's something that it happens individually because trust me.
No. I think you can hate openly and outwardly.
Oh, yeah, of course, yes.
So you can get other people on your bandwagon of hating because they're going to join in on the gossip. They're going to join in on, oh man, that was terrible. Blah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's messed up. But when you're exercising empathy for somebody else, which is, we've talked about this, empathy, that's not an easy thing to do.
It isn't.
But I'm saying, but it's more of a personal battle that you go through. So that's the difficulty.
Yes, you're doing it internally.
So that's why I said I think that they're equivalent, because on the outside you can hate somebody and you can be mean and whatever and do whatever, but you could be outwardly like nasty because that's the culture that we live in today.
Yes, yeah.
But to have empathy is not the culture, Omar.
Now, don't get me wrong. That there's, in the last few years, there are some people that I really dislike.
Right.
I'm a human being.
And how much energy did you exert in that?
But it took a lot of energy from me because, again, it was reminiscent of what happened.
Right.
So you want to associate the two. But then in reality, then you start really looking objectively and saying, okay, let's look at the time and the place.
Right.
Let's look at what were the circumstances and what were the reasons, and you have to understand that there were other circumstances.
Right.
There were status things. There were things that who do you think you are?
So wouldn't you agree then that as much energy as it took to exercise hatred and anger and frustrations, it's equally difficult to exercise empathy because now you're alone in doing that because that's not necessarily the culture.
Well, this is the hard part. The hard part and what really gets people is that, again, life is an experience, number one, right? And the uniqueness of the human, of the individual quest, that personal individual quest, the hard part is those moments when you are alone.
Exactly.
And you're thinking about the past. And you'll try to formulate a future based on the past because you are alone. Now, granted, you could have a support system. You could have all those things. And those things are great. I encourage it. But at the end of the day, you have to go inside by yourself. And you have to be mentally prepared to be able to have.
You have to be objective.
You have to
be rational.
You have to be rational.
You
have to be able to put things in their compartments.
Right.
The dark. You have to put your shadow in the compartment. You have to put your animus and animus in their compartments. Those opposite forces that you have within you to be able to objectively see.
Right.
The individual yourself as truly what you are,
right.
Because you will continue as you go forward. You will continue to have conflicts because it is inevitable.
And in those moments, just to piggyback what you're saying, you have to be able to exercise self-compassion.
You have to be able to, again, those are all like the new terminologies that they use in the current mental health, self-compassion.
Well, it's what people identify with, and that's why I'm saying it.
Yeah, and again, so you identify more with these things. So that I'm very archaic.
Well, I think I'm progressive when it comes to that, and that's archaic. What people relate to.
Yeah.
So I think it's important because you have to be able to be vulnerable to do that.
Yeah.
And you also have to have compassion for yourself.
Yeah, that's why you're the yin to my yang, because I'm very archaic and I'm very
but what you're saying is very relevant, and that's true. I am your yin to your yang because you can be rough around the edges. Let me just deliver that nicely.
I got a lot of sharp edges.
I know. I'm a sharp
object.
I'm here to taper that. Ooh, that was good.
Great show.
I'm here to taper that because the truth is that when you're going through those processes, that's what you're doing, because those are the new terminologies, if you will. They're not new terminologies. They're just exactly.
Yeah, repackaged. But it is important to understand and to allow yourself the flexibility to that when you look at your past, and you look at the things that have happened in your past, both positive and negatives, because sometimes our past positives and our successes could also blind us for the possibilities of the future.
Well, definitely.
Because we think, if we do things in this same way, we will get the same outcome.
Right.
Probabilities are good.
Right.
But are you gonna get the same exact result? No.
Chances are no.
Right.
You close yourself off.
And that's the idea of evolving.
Yeah.
And because I've learned a lot of things from this. Let's try to figure out a way to make it more effective, much better, and more beneficial.
Right.
In the long term.
Right.
So it's looking at, looking in your past and accepting what has happened. It's an important thing. The final point that I want to make is, I hated the last Spider-Man movie. Hated it.
Maybe we'll get comments on that.
I did. Hated it. I wanted to walk out really bad because
hopefully Joan's not listening.
I know she's not listening. She loves the cinematography. I think the cinematography was great. The pictures, all that was great. The storyline, I just did not like it. The reason why is because you have to sometimes accept that what's happened, it's happened.
Right.
And you can't go back.
Oh, yeah. So for those who didn't see it, we don't want to go there, do we? But okay.
Spoilers.
Okay.
But you can't constantly...
Spoiler alert.
You can't live in the illusion that you're going to go back and change things for something better. I think it's a really bad idea to live from that point of view, that to go back and change people and because what will be the point? Mm-hmm. You're taking away who you are as a person by going back and trying to fix things that happen.
Well, and I think then what comes into play, or the phrase that I think of that comes to mind when you say that is, you can't do that. That's not feasible.
Yeah.
But hindsight is 20/20. Because you can reflect on the past in a positive manner.
Correct.
To help you with things that are going on currently, thus creating opportunities for your future.
Yeah.
And that's what I think.
And again, it's like, and this is the thing that, I get this so much. I don't care. People don't, if they watch it, they watch it. If they don't, they don't. I don't really understand. I care. And this is the issue that I see with minorities, to be honest with you, and speaking as one. Right? Mm-hmm. We look at the past, and a lot of minorities in particular, I don't think have learned this lesson. to be able to understand it, do what the I'm okay, you're okay says, and be able to forgive and move forward.
Mm. And why do you think that's just a minority issue? I think that's an entire human race issue.
But I see it now because I don't know. I guess it's my TikTok feed is a lot of minority stuff. I don't know why, but at the same token, it's like you can't live in the past. What's done is done.
So I think that is more applicable to the human race.
Yes, to the human race
because
in general,
I think a lot of people because
see, this is why you're yin to my yang because I'm coarse and you're so much more diplomatic than I am.
I just think that I think that it's a reflection of the entire human race.
It is.
We have so many. We got baggage. We got chips on our shoulders.
Yes.
And those chips on our shoulders weigh us down. And that's the hate part that I was talking about earlier. And we have to be able to come to a place where we just say, you know what? Exercising empathy, compassion,
and understanding. It's like
understanding.
What's happened. And those people at those times were whatever
that's what they
were,
had.
And then this is what they had. And this is what
they did.
Now, we've progressed so much and we have advanced so much. Let's not mess it up. Number one.
Well,
number two.
And that's the problem. If you're fighting for it not happening today,
exactly,
absolutely, you should be fighting for it.
But we can't relive what's happened. It's
right.
too late. We can't go back,
right.
And we can't hold other people accountable. Right. What I do say is like, okay, you stand up for what's right where you are, and you do the best you can where you are,
right?
You know, and again, it is so controversial and it is so convoluted, but. Every time that we continue to live in the past and we continue to live from that point and we've failed to forgive, when we failed to learn from our past experiences and come up with new perspectives, then we're doing our individual selves a disservice.
Yep, I agree. So because we can't talk forever, although we could.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. I just went on a rant right there.
Let's go. No, it's fine. It's good. I think it's relevant and it matters. It's a discussion.
You're so diplomatic. I like it. See, you temper my judgment.
Well, I think it's important to when you're making statements like that. I think it's important to put that where it needs to be. Mm-hmm. And that's on the responsibility of the entire human race. We're all responsible for that.
Yeah.
I know that certain minorities have experienced in the past atrocities and they've been devastating. And I would never take that away from anybody. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you that we have to sort of let that go. If you're you're living today and find a different way to fight for that right if it's being violated
again.
And that's right. And I think that's what I'm trying to say. And who knows, we might get some negative backlash on it's fine because that's what we think. And I don't think that we mean it in a negative way. I think it's conducive to think in that way. You can't change the past. You can certainly bring it up if you want to, but what's the point?
Yeah.
And why not focus on where we are today?
Correct.
And why we're doing things that are relevant to the past to other races or other people or other people's desires, needs, wants, whatever. Mm-hmm. And looking at that and how we can change that. You know, does that make sense?
No, it does make sense.
Okay.
You know, the idea is like as now that things have happened, both from the individual and the collective standpoint, now that these things have happened and atrocities and which are real, these things are complete facts. Nobody is minimizing that. Right. Just like it happens in the individual with traumatic experiences with their loved ones and things like that. Those things have already happened. Right. The question is, how do you move forward? How do you learn from this experience? Right. How do you create something better with that? Right. Because those experiences have made you, they're a part of you.
Right.
You know, but you could choose to continue the stigma and continue that.
Right.
Or you could continue to become evolve as an individual that understands those things
and remove the stigma.
Empathetic, becomes more empathetic. Understand that those people didn't know any better, but I'd be damned if you're gonna do it again.
Yeah,
you know,
not gonna tolerate that.
So it's like, but but think about evolving as a whole, healing both the aggressor and the perpetrator.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's like both have to evolve.
Exactly.
And not being condemned.
Exactly. Okay. So, because we have to come to a close.
I understand. Yes.
I just want to kind of recap the things that we've gone over throughout this episode. And there are 5 things that I sort of have written down and have notes on. So, number 1, use your rational thinking qualities.
Yes. Well, I thought you were going to read the rest.
No, you're going to tell me what's that. I want us to engage in conversation.
Okay. So you have to identify
brief conversation.
You have to identify what the issue is and why is it bothering you. Like, you have to understand that.
Right.
You know.
Definitely.
If you feel like I have an issue with a feeling of abandonment.
Right. What is that? Alone. Explore it.
To me, I just give you an example. To me, my biggest issue is like sometimes I feel like I'm nothing.
Right.
Honestly, straight up, I'm nothing. I'm nobody wants me. Nobody wants to be around me. Whatever. Right. And then I got to start thinking about it. Okay, why would I feel like I'm nothing? Well, this happened from this individual, this happened from this individual, this happened from this individual, then this happened and this happened. Okay. Now, we're going to look at all the things that you are. You're this, you're this, you're this, you're this, you're this. And you have done this, and that.
Right.
And now you have this to look forward to.
Gotcha.
And now you have a goal and you have an idea.
Right.
But I've come to embrace being nothing because space is vast and there's nothing in it.
Right.
So I love that shit now. I like being nothing.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The second thing is to remember that life is mostly out of our control and that unexpected things will happen.
Yep.
And that's because we live in a society with other people, really.
Exactly.
It's very simple.
We live in a universe that we don't know what's really going to happen.
Right.
Right. We live in a world itself that is slithering. It's just going around a star, you know, in an expanding universe, right? And we don't know where it begins. Well, we think we know where it begins. We don't know where it's going to end or if it's going to end. And we know that our life has a certain time frame. Yeah. So in the midst of all that, we got to remember that. And we can't shy away from it or become anxious about the end. Right. It is inevitable. It is coming. Yeah. Every day that passes by is coming. So the idea is you can't be afraid of that. That's why you have to experience life and look at experiences, accept both positive and the negatives of it all. Okay. Yep.
Number 3, as a unique individual on a quest for discovery, know that you are not perfect.
Yes. Mistakes are a part of life.
Well, that's what we learn from.
We are not infallible, you know.
This is the very concept of this whole episode is learning from mistakes and thinking about what's happened. So what did I learn from this experience, you know?
And that's
whether it's a mistake or not a mistake or somebody else's mistake. What did I learn from it?
It's just, I mean, to me, it's like I do like a lot of thought experiments. Right. Thinking about things like that.
Oh, I know. You're like philosopher, you mean? Like philosopher?
No, I just thought experiments just like
existentialists?
No, it's just I just kind of like just things just pop into my head. Like I said earlier, the first person that said, "Oh, I wanna eat a puffer fish," you know, and then they ate it and it was poisonous and they died. And then somebody else came, well, he ate this part, let me try that other part. Like, how do they figure that out? Mistakes.
Well, first of all, if I saw somebody eat a puffer fish and they died from it, I would not eat it. Period.
But they do. But that's what I'm saying.
No, I know.
You know,
but it's
now they know how to prepare it. Now they know specifically which parts, how to prepare it so it doesn't become poisonous to the human body. Right. Like, they know that. Somebody had to start with that. Somebody had to start eating it. And to get to that point, experiences, traumatic experiences that evolved. And that's just that. But think about all the other things. The first person that got in, we were talking to our friend. Think about the first person, right? The helicopter was established in the 1930s. Think about the first person that said, I'm going to go there. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I'm going to go. I want to see what happens. to go in this thing that nobody has ever tried, you know, and learn, oh, okay, we can't do that and we can't do this. When we can't do that, I could have died, but okay, now I know what to do. Mistakes, and you learn from that. That's experiencing life.
Okay. So the fourth way that we can let go of our mistakes and put the past behind us is by letting our emotions out in a productive way.
Yes. There's no denying that pain exists, you know, and those traumatic experiences they hold emotional content, right? And you and sometimes it's very suppressive inside, and you had to let it out. Again, full disclosure, within the last year, I'm not a person that typically cries. I was cried out.
I know.
I was cried out when I was a kid. I mean, all my tears came out back then, right? But the last year has been a very challenging year, and there wasn't anything more cathartic than just having like a just
an
let
ugly
it out.
cry.
Ugly cry. There was nobody around, which is kind of interesting. I'm sharing it now, but it was an ugly cry, and I just let it all out, and it was just from the inside, you know. So that's one thing that I did. That it was just, and it felt.
Was it catharsis?
It was a catharsis, and it felt so good afterwards. Like I felt clean afterwards. That's one thing. The second thing is, and again, this might be hokey or might be whatever, but I wrote letters to all those people that I consider my aggressors, or I consider like that I was angered about, and I really just fucking just let it out on a piece of paper. Then I burnt it.
That's a good one.
Then I burnt it. Napoleon Hill has this line that he says, if you have something negative to say about someone, write it in the sands at the beach so the wave takes it.
That's right.
You know, but physically, a physical thing when you can't do something one-on-one, because we seldom get to do that.
Right.
You know, it's a symbol. It is a symbolic action that to write it down, to let that out, and to take it and physically burn it. That symbolism that's why rituals were so powerful in past religions and stuff, because there were a symbolic manifestation of something to be expressed. You know.
Yeah.
And that is something that I did, and we both did that.
I did it too.
And
it was catharsis.
But it is a catharsis to be able to let that out. You know, that's one of the things that we do. And the point is to give it its moment in the sun.
Yeah, definitely.
And to let it out of you. You know, and there still be remnants in there, but again, it's just to give it its moment in the sun. You know, in a productive manner. The other thing is, use that to create something, make something out of it, you know, write something about it. Writing is like one of the most powerful tools that it was ever created for the human species. Use it, write it, you know, create something like that. Create something that gets your stuff out. Go to a batting cage and go batting. You know, go to the range, shoot at a target.
Yeah,
let it out.
Yeah,
in a productive manner.
Yeah. Okay.
You know. All right, go ahead. Next one.
The final way for us to let go of our mistakes and put the past behind us is knowing that your life has meaning in the here and now.
Yeah. Past experiences, and this is something that we have to accept. Past experiences, both positive and negative, are the catalyst for us to evolve as individuals. Those experiences have value. They are painful.
Yeah.
They are tough.
Yeah.
They are scars that we always carry. But you wouldn't be manifesting the individual, as shitty as you may feel right now, because you're trying to get rid of it. If you look at them with soft eyes to learn from those, what did I learn? I learned that my mother didn't abandon me. She left to find a better life for me. But as an 8-year-old, 7-year-old, how do you understand that?
Right.
Only in retrospect do you really understand that. To accept that my father was just a young man living in a culture that just spread your seeds, young man. And I understand it, and understand his regret you know, you could accept that. I can't change the man, nor do I want to.
No.
But I could understand it. Now, me as an individual, I never wanted to do that because I understood my pain.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you came to terms with that.
Yeah,
pain.
Me as an individual didn't feel that I should abandon my wife or our kids. I chose to do that. I chose to do my very best not to spread my seeds out there, which I did pretty good.
You didn't spread your seed
I
anywhere.
didn't,
you have no children but our own.
So those are lessons that you learn, and how you choose to move forward is what really matters. But that's how we evolve as people. That's how we become better human beings.
And at the end of the day, what does the individual do?
The choice is yours. You have to choose. You have to choose to either let this experience dictate your life, or learn from them and try to make the best out of it. Because, I will put it like this to end this, right? The Buddha says that all life is suffering, right? But the transcendence of that suffering is the path to nirvana, right? Mm-hmm. And nirvana is not a place. It's a psychological state of mind. I'm not even close to being there. I'm learning as I go. But I'm experiencing life even with this tough stuff, which is, it hasn't been easy, but you learn from it.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's it.
If you like this video, please like and subscribe and leave us a comment. Also, if you want to know more about what we're doing at A Soul's Quest, make sure to visit us at asoulsquest.com.